Welcome to the Research Culture Uncovered podcast, where in every episode we explore what is research culture and what should it be. You'll hear thoughts and opinions from a range of contributors to help you change research culture into what you want it to be.
Welcome to this podcast episode where we focus on a topic that is close to my and my guests' heart: how to engage with our postdoctoral community and co-create a more equitable, positive and collaborative research culture. My name is Ruth Winden and I'm the Careers with Research Consultant at the University of Leeds. I'm here with my special guest, Dr. Susan Donkin. Susan is my colleague and close collaborator of our new postdoc engagement initiative. Before I ask Susan to introduce herself, I just wanted to briefly explain what this new project is. It is called Pathfinder, and it is a monthly newsletter for postdocs, created with and for our postdoctoral community. Susan and I also created Pathfinder as a useful resource for research leaders as they lead and manage postdocs in their research groups, and we want them to be aware of all the professional development opportunities, the postdoc successes, and of course the challenges that our postdoc community encounters. And if you think, okay, Pathfinder, that's just a newsletter, big deal, please stay with us as we want to share why we believe a simple newsletter matters so much, how Susan and I designed it as a vehicle to inform, engage with and appreciate postdocs, and why ultimately our aim is to give our postdocs a stronger voice. And dare I say it, longer term, Susan and I want our Pathfinder newsletter to influence research culture for the better. But first, over to you, Susan. I am so glad we're in this together. Your approach, your skills, your drive, your energy, and your expertise are such an asset to this initiative. Welcome.
Welcome, Ruth, and thank you very much for the kind introduction. I'm thrilled to be working on this project with you, Ruth, because it's something that is very dear to my heart. Prior to working on this project with you here, I was myself PhD student in Australia and got to sort of see the ins and outs of the postdoctoral life. And when I was fortunate enough to become a lecturer myself, I very much thought this is something I want to really support. So I became the ECR rep locally at my university at the time. Most recently, I was also at Leeds myself as a postdoctoral research fellow. And I noticed that there was a lot of things that I only managed to get the hang of over time. So it wasn't until the last couple of months when I realized all these things were open to me and that I'd been at Leeds and I'd not been aware of the amazing opportunities that ODPL and Leeds offer to the research community. So having since made a sideways move into ODPL, it is something that is really dear to my heart. I really want to make sure that the postdocs have access to all these amazing opportunities and that we can help support them along the way as well with their careers.
And that is so noticeable when I work with you, Susan, because you always have that postdoc perspective and you do it with a lot of passion because you want people, to have access to things that you might not have had immediately, because we know we offer so much. It can be very overwhelming, and having one monthly information portal where people see the latest things happening and where they can sign up for things is so important. But we want it to be a lot more than an information portal, don't we? And when we look back, why did we start the newsletter? About 2 years ago, Emma Sperry and I and colleagues, we thought we need to engage more with our postdocs and our ECRs. Let's create a team space. And oh my word, how much effort did we make at this? How hard did we try to engage and share? And the response wasn't really as strong as we had hoped for or expected, because we had not really cottoned on to the fact that postdocs say, well, to be honest, we prefer email. And so that was a hard lesson to learn. And of course, we had asked, how do you want to communicate with us? But we were just so on this wave of everyone is using Teams. Let's create a Teams space. It made perfect sense, Susan, didn't it? But then we changed tack. So how do you want to tell us a little bit about, how this Pathfinder project started?
So there was a research culture survey that talked about engagement, and it was that very clear message, like you mentioned, that people wanted to receive their information in email. But rather than just sort of going, okay, well, we'll just send out loads more emails because everybody gets far too many emails and nobody looks at it. We don't want the emails to just kind of go to the bottom of the pile or end up in the junk folder. So we in the action group that we have for ECRs, we talked to the people who would be reading it. Our customers, our clientele, about what is it that you would actually want to see in these newsletters? What would make you read these? So in collaboration with our colleagues, our postdoc colleagues, we drew up a list of things that hopefully reflects what they would like to see, a place where we can create just a monthly newsletter where they get all their information in short form. So it's really important to us that we created a short and snappy newsletter because everybody's busy, especially postdocs. So we want it to be a resource where they can go when they have 5 minutes over coffee or a break and just skim read the newsletter. And if something piques their interest, which obviously we hope it does, that it will link them through to different resources or different websites as well, so that hopefully we can create this tool for them to just know, oh, didn't I see something in the newsletter? I can go and have a look at what that newsletter was about, or I'd like to do something for my career development, but I don't know where to start. Let me have a look at the postdoc newsletter. So it's really important to us that we create this accessible but manageable chunk of information for our postdocs to consume.
Absolutely. And you've done a super job with that so far because it's really short and snappy. And although we want them to read it all, we know where they don't, but they can skim and they can also go back to previous episodes, can't they? And editions, and can look it up. And I think one thing I absolutely love about the newsletter is it feels like a place for celebration and appreciation, because and many of our colleagues at the university, we appreciate our postdocs, and it's just so nice to hear about some of their, what they're up to, the projects that they engage with, whether that's research or research culture projects, and also, their successes. And Susan, when you and I thought about, let's celebrate them and let's include successes, we had the most positive intentions, didn't we? And again, we had a quick lesson to learn. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yes. So one of the things that did come out in the talks with the postdocs was, they would like to be involved. So we thought that is brilliant. That is exactly what we want. We want this to be a co-creation where they can see themselves reflected. So it's not just us talking at them, but we can, and like you said, very much about celebrating their successes, because postdocs have a lot of things, whether, it's things, job related things like getting a fellowship or being nominated for a particular award, but also, private milestones as well. We'd love to be able to share that with people. And we thought, yes, this is great. We'll create a forum where we can really engage and connect with our postdocs. But for one reason or another, I guess, we've been somewhat taken aback by the radio silence. I think we've been very fortunate in that through your contacts, Ruth, you've been able to approach some people and give them a friendly little nudge, so that we have had these pieces in the past editions. But the contributions haven't been as forthcoming as we might have hoped. So I remember we had a chat recently, didn't we, about sitting together and why might this be and what could we do about it? So we did think about this idea that when we're talking about postdocs writing a piece for them, maybe it's something, maybe they're really passionate about something, but they think that it's got too negative a spin, or they feel that nobody else will be interested, or there could be various reasons for the lack of engagement, I guess, that we're experiencing. But we're hoping that by overcoming it in different ways, we might be able to address that. So one option might be that we open the postdoc corner out to be anonymous, so that if you have something on your chest or something that you feel is a really important issue, but you don't want to put your name to it just in case you fear of repercussions, you can submit anonymously. And we are happy to go with that, because it might be that conversation piece, that nudge that really sparks that conversation going amongst the postdoc community. And we're not just talking about, the faculty or discipline specific silos, but just a lot of postdocs that we see, no matter which discipline they're in, they face very similar challenges and obstacles. So opening up that conversation to the wider audience, I think, could really be a really good impetus to connect the postdoc community together and have those discussions out in the open. And for us, in our position, to potentially help shift some things to make things a bit better for them, or if we can, I suppose it depends what it is. And with regards to celebrating successes, we know there's lots of successful postdocs out there and they do brilliant things, but whether it be imposter syndrome or feeling that, well, nobody's going to be interested in what I have to say, we'd love to hear from you. So what we'd like to do is either for the PIs of the postdocs to nominate their postdocs and say, this person's done something brilliant, let's celebrate their success, or for peers and colleagues to nominate their colleagues and say and tell us about the amazing successes or feats that people are doing. And it can be a personal thing as well. Like we had a conversation about, there's so many postdocs doing some amazing charity initiatives, for example. Why don't you tell us about something that's dear to your heart and tell us about that charity run that you're doing, and maybe why, if you feel comfortable doing so. But we really would like it to be for the community and for the community to get connected. And we can only really do that if they're a part of actually writing it. So please, if you have a great postdoc as a PI listening, please do encourage them or nominate them to be part of the newsletter. And if you're a postdoc, just do it. Don't worry about
Absolutely.
it. Or give us a call. We can have a bit of a chat if you're worried, and we can talk you through any questions that you might have. We're very approachable.
We definitely are. And I think what I have learned over the last few months is, I think success is actually such a loaded word. We avoided the word for a while, didn't we? And
Yes.
called it postdoc corner. But then we thought, oh, what do we want to have in that corner? And when we talk to postdocs, oh, but you're doing this so well, or what about this project, that project? They immediately say, oh, but anyone could do that, or oh, it's nothing special, or oh, it's not the big fellowship, and that's not what we mean. Yes, of course, if you get a fellowship, it's amazing, and share it with us. But it's also other things, from people running the first 10K race in Leeds recently for charity, or going away and doing a research project for 3 months on a boat. I mean, I hear obviously about all sorts of wonderful things. It very much excites me. And that's our community, showcasing the different things they do. But it doesn't always also have to be the big successes. It's, for me, a success could also be, from a careers perspective, in the next edition, I'm giving something away here. We have a contribution for a postdoc who made a sideways careers move and wrote about it very, very movingly, and so much better than I could ever do, because I write it from a careers perspective and they write it from the first person, experience and the narrative side, and that's what we're after. But let's be honest, it's early days, and I mean, I get teased a lot because last year all I did was talk to everyone and anyone at the university about, have you listened to our podcast? Now it's, have you read our postdoc newsletter? And what is so funny, isn't it, Susan? We put a lot of effort into this. And people say, yeah, I really like it. I do read it. I do not let it slip. But then we want people to take the next step. And as you say, Susan, if you don't want to feature yourself, you will be surrounded by wonderful postdocs, and you might want to just nominate them, or say, oh, so-and-so do something really interesting, or give us some names and we reach out. And I know, Susan, we're very convincing. We've had so far no one who we approach directly say, no, which just goes to show, how persuasive we are. And, another thing that's interesting for me is, I mean, I used to do a lot of marketing before I came to Leeds, so I'm always coming from it from a content management perspective and having very clear targets in mind. So we actually do have targets, haven't we? In our Concordat action plan, the Pathfinder newsletter is in there in the next 3 years action plan. And we have very, very enticing targets. And initially we thought, ooh, they look really, really, really strong and challenging. How do we do it? But then we've had such an amazing success. So, Susan, do you want to tell us a little bit about some of our statistics?
Um,
Yes, we're showing
I
off now,
suppose.
aren't we? But never mind, never mind.
Well, I hope we're showing off, and other people listening to this don't go, well, why are they talking about that? That's a bit rubbish. But look, given the targets that we initially set ourselves, we were very encouraged to see that from the ever increasing numbers of subscribers, and there are far more people subscribing than are unsubscribing, it has to be said. We're almost at 1,000 subscribers, and very close to half of those subscribers have opened our
Mm.
emails or our newsletter. So that to me is encouraging, because it's something that people are obviously clicking on and reading through. I guess the click-through rates are a bit lower than I suppose we'd like them to be. So maybe we need to think about discussing content or adapting the content as we move forward. But again, without feedback, which we do ask for in every newsletter, without that feedback, we can't make the newsletter more tailored to you. So if there is something out there that you are missing or think we're missing a trick, then we'd love to hear from you how we can adapt and make it something that is more suited to you.
But from a commercial background, I know that our opening rate is actually really, really high. I mean, I couldn't believe it because in industry, I think if I remember correctly, sometimes even as low as 5% click-through rate is actually really reasonable. And so far we're reaching half of our subscribers open it up, and it's been consistent since we started. It's not going down.
It
And
hasn't,
obviously,
no.
Susan and I, we're ambitious people. We look at, okay, can we do better? Can we do better? What about the other 49% who are not opening it or not clicking? But I think in general, let's give it time. We're early in to this project. Is there anything else, Susan, that we can share that would be useful? Because I'm very aware that our colleagues who are researcher developers who engage with postdocs, I think engagement is the tricky bit, because we know our postdocs are very, very busy. They have a lot on their mind. They're also bombarded with information. And so, how do you break through? How do you engage? So, Susan, now that we are a few months into co-creating the newsletter, we've already learned some very, very important lessons. And we also have some tips for anyone who's also either already writing, creating a newsletter, or is planning to do so. So, Susan, from your experience, what are some useful lessons that we've learned that our listeners can benefit from?
It's a good question. I think taking my number one lesson learned from you, Ruth, is build on your relationships. And you have such good relationships with the postdoc community. Use the connections that you've already made, and don't be afraid to ask. People have been so helpful, so forthcoming. And like you've mentioned previously, nobody's turned us down yet. So don't be afraid to turn to the people that you already know. I think another thing we're sort of noticing as time is sort of ticking by, we are seeing more people come to us now. So the word is getting out. So be patient. Rome wasn't built in a day. So you start slowly, and with a bit of time, with a bit of exposure, people will come to you. People will want to feature their content to reach that postdoc community that is valuable to them too. Look at the resources that you already have, because ODMPL, like the researcher development team, has got such amazing resources already. And for anybody from Leeds listening, go and check out the website. There are so many resources out there for postdocs and researchers in general. Make the most of those things. So having the newsletter sometimes works as a bit of a platform to sort of say, have you seen this resource? Because there's quite a turnover in the postdoc community as well. So just sometimes pointing people to the existing platforms can be a useful way to use the newsletter as well. And I guess planning ahead as well. So we have this Excel spreadsheet where we have, the content calendar where we're planning out the upcoming issues, and of course the all important upcoming August break. So there will be a break in August. We do have lives, so we will be taking a break from the newsletter then. But it does help us to not feel super stressed. We are able to plan ahead, move things around depending on what ideas come up or what events come up, or we've done a bit of juggling already, quite a bit. So having that planning tool, I think, has helped us not completely freak out when there's been a bit of a change, or I think that has been a very useful tool.
I think what's also really special is, and why it's so much fun, is we're so complementary, Susan, and we always come up with lots and lots of stuff when we have those conversations. And I think that's the thing as well, isn't it? Having these regular meetings, not just, 3 days before it goes out, but sort of we meet every 2 weeks, basically, take an hour, discuss, okay, how are things happening, what's coming in, what do we need to work on, are there any gaps, what ideas do we have for future editions. I love that content calendar. I'm an ideas person. I mean, you give me half an hour and suddenly there's all this stuff coming in. But what I also like is we do now have monthly themes, haven't we? So I'm giving a secret away here, but our next monthly theme coming out for July is ECR, postdoc and ECR reps, the unsung heroes of academia. And we have a really nice varied content collection around that topic. I've written something from a careers perspective. We have an ECR rep who's written about his experience. We have a call to action for people. So it's nice to have themes per month. And the danger is always, if the theme doesn't resonate with someone, they might not look. But there's also something else. And what is in every single edition is, our resources. And what you say, Susan, is so very true. Postdocs are a transient community, and some postdocs at least who might have been with us for a few years might have seen some of them before, but then it's a good reminder. And it's easy to find. They just click on it and goes direct to link. Or if you're new to the institution, then you have some resources you might not have been aware that they're actually there waiting for you to be used. So So altogether, I'm so glad we started the Pathfinder. And yes, there's been quite a bit of setup work. You've become an expert at the software, which is, I couldn't do it without you. I keep saying that, Susan, but it's a beautiful collaboration, and long may it last. So, you and I were very passionate about it. And yes, it is a newsletter in its basic format. Yes, that's what it is. But for us, it's so much more, isn't it? It's a tool that we want others to use. It's giving postdocs a voice. You and I are so passionate about that. And it's also celebrating who they are, what they bring, the impact they're making with their research and in their lives. And ultimately for me, it really is another tool to influence the research culture for the better. And I think having that shared big why, you and I, Susan, I think that makes it so special to do this together, because we're on the same page and we have the same drive and energy for it. And I can't thank you enough. And it's such a joy. And I wouldn't want to do it on my own, and I couldn't do it on my own either. So there we go. Susan, do you want to give us a few more passing words before we finish our episode?
Yes, there is one thing actually that I would definitely like to put out there for those people listening who might be PIs, and you've got You're wonderful, talented postdocs working on your projects. I think personally, it would be really, really useful if some of you could share some of the wisdom that you have and share that with the postdoc community. So either if there is anyone listening who feels inspired by this, who wants to maybe write a piece for us, it doesn't have to just be from the postdocs, but if the PIs could come and write a piece as well. So if a PI could come and say, what advice would I give my younger self upon starting my career? Or what question do I get asked the most? We'd love to hear from you. And if we don't get any volunteers, we're going to come knocking. So
Oh,
we would definitely love to hear from PIs because it is such a symbiotic relationship. And like you say, postdocs are the unsung heroes of academia. But if we can have that relationship with the PIs and cement that in a really collaborative way, I think that would benefit everybody, especially at the university. So
absolutely. And we're very proud to say that we already have one collaboration between PIs and postdocs and a project manager coming up in one of our autumn editions. And that was a beautiful afternoon I spent with a wonderful research group. It was so collaborative. And we asked them, can you write something about that for the newsletter? Because you're really setting a great new trend here. And they immediately said, yes. So there we go. Susan, thank you so much for your time. And here's to the next few years of producing Pathfinder, and all the best. Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Research Culture Uncovered podcast. Please subscribe so you never miss out on our brand new episodes. And if you're enjoying the discussions, give us some love by dropping a 5-star rating and written review, as it helps other research culturists find us. And please share with a friend and show them how to subscribe. Thanks for listening, and here's to you and your research culture.